making of a grayscale. This lecture is about the making of a grayscale, finding the perfect gray between white and black. You need at least 2 big, flat, soft brushes. In general, the more expensive they are, the better they are. Make sure that the hairs are soft. Bristle brushes, pig hair or hog hair, are not so good, as the hairs are too stiff. They leave trace lines in the paint. Best are brushes from sable, but if you are against using animals in products for your projects, soft synthetic fiber brushes will do as well. Choose a flat model, not a round brush. The size should range from 14 to 20. You need at least 1 to mix the paint and 1 or 2 to smear. You need white and black. This can be gouache or acrylic paint. Buy big cans or tubes of white and black. You will need this paint again in other parts of this series of courses. Whatever type of paint you will find at your local art store, and it should be based on water, not oil. Also, watercolors are not good because they are made to be transparent. Gouache or acrylic is what you need. The paper you will use is about 150 to 200 grams thick. It is uncoated and not too smooth of texture. It needs a little roughness, so it is easier for the gouache or acrylic paint to stick on the paper. You need a jar with water. You will mix drops of water with the paint to get it to the right texture and right thickness. You also need some water for washing the brushes. Take some old cloth for drying the brushes and cleaning up little accidents. Add some bowls or some old dishes and you're all set. Painting a grayscale means that we go all the way from white to black and reverse in small steps, each time adding a little of one to the other. Then we select the best middle gray to match the right balance between white and black. Although this seems old-fashioned, are you still using paint? Why not use a computer? There are plenty of reasons to make a grayscale with physical materials. Don't worry, there will be plenty of computer lectures too in this series of design courses, ranging from practical hands-on exercises to real programming. The main difference between color in paint and color on screen is that the mixing is a different process. The screen works with light beams sent into your eyes. Mixing colors with light is an additive process. The 3 different colors on your screen, red, green, and blue, add up to the white or gray that you see. That is principally the opposite from the behavior of how pigments in paint work. There, the light is already white, as it comes from the sun, from a light bulb, or a combination of both. The paint absorbs part of the colors from the white while reflecting the others. So when you see red, the paint actually absorbs all the other colors. When we see gray, it means that all colors are absorbed in even quantity, this way reducing the total amount of reflected light. If all light is absorbed, we see that as black. The paint subtracts. Painting is a subtractive process. Anything you want to make that is not supposed to show on screens is something where the material matters. Anytime the design product has multiple dimensions, being made by molding, folding, or casting, part of the design is about how to produce this product. These are all reasons to use paint for a grayscale. Design options come from doing and thinking and doing again and again. Not just from thinking about the product until the right idea pops up. Organizing your work will help. Start with a clean table, clean dishes and bowls, and especially very clean brushes. Any amount of previous paint will put traces of gray or color in your work. polluting the range of grays. Try to work in daylight as much as possible. Otherwise, try to work with a special daylight lamp, a blue bulb, or fluorescent light. Use thick drawing paper. Since the paint contains water, it will wrinkle a bit. This is not a problem, but the paper should be so thick that when the paint dries, it gets flat again. Start with white paint. You need to paint the white over the white paper because the color will never be exactly the same. Always work from light colors to dark colors. You have better control then. It takes only a tiny drop of black to change the white into gray. Going the other way around, you would need a lot more white paint to achieve the same result. Dark pigment is always stronger than light pigment, as you will see. Put the white paint on a dish or in a bowl in a generous amount because you have to make a lot of steps from white to black. Note that guessing the right amount gets better as you do it next time, so even that is a design process in itself. Another bowl gets the black color. Add water to the paint until it is spreadable, which means that it's not too thick but also not too thin, just aqueous enough. Finding the right amount of thickness is a balancing exercise in itself. Make some samples to get it to the right density. It's a matter of practice. Every time you practice it, it will go better, and it will give you much joy and satisfaction. You have to make a lot of steps from white to black. Our eyes are able to discern at least 45 gray tones, so every time you add just a tiny little bit of black paint to the white paint, it will get a small step darker. The steps should be hardly noticeable. Remember that while you're painting, you cannot compare the gray with the ones that you already did. The gray changes when the paint dries. The steps you are making are smaller than the difference between wet and dry paint. Paint rectangles of roughly 6 centimeters by 10 centimeters, 2.5 by 4 inches, by spreading the paint in some wet layers of vertical and horizontal strokes. If the paint is too dry, then this will show as white holes in the stroke. If the paint is too wet, then you will see traces of the paper shining through the paint. Also, it takes a long time to dry, and it is harder to get the paper flat again. Always paint wet on wet. Never paint on top of a dried layer. The paint will burst. Start with painting the two extremes, white and black. You can paint 2 or 3 areas of each, since you may need them later on for other purposes. Also, this is a way of testing if the paint isn't too dry or too wet. The white and black areas are now the compatible extremes of our quest to find the perfect middle gray. How much black you need to add to the white for every step is hard to tell. You have to work by trial and error. Start making a proof and then see what happens. It is quite important to notice what you're doing. Be aware of the amount of paint you use and how many drops you add in each step. Avoid your black brush to be polluted with white. Keep it isolated from the white bowl. Carefully hitting the white bowl with the side of the black brush makes drops of paint fall into the white bowl without touching the white paint itself. If the thickness of the black paint is just right, the size of these drops will be more or less identical all the time. This helps you to quantify the amount. You cannot spend enough time mixing the colors. You don't want separate particles of white or black to remain because they draw lines in your area of gray while you paint them. Never try to paint a different gray on top of one that you did before. The existing layer will partially resolve, which leads to traces of different grays in the new layer that you're making. Always start on a fresh area on the big sheet of paper. Painting grayscales this way is very different from how an artist would paint. Oil paint takes a long time to dry, so there it is much easier to mix the colors on the canvas. Here, we're just interested in uniform areas of gray. Repeat this for as long as there is gray paint in the bowl. This way, you should be able to reach around 75% of the path from white to black. You cannot go any further because it would cost a theoretically infinite amount of black paint to get rid of the white particles. Now it is time to reverse the path. Make sure that there is enough paint in the black bowl. You can add more black now if you expect it is not enough to paint the remaining steps of dark gray. Take new white paint in a clean bowl and mix it to the right thickness with drops of water. This time, the water drops should fall into the black. The action is reversed now. Gently hit the side of the black bowl with a white brush. You only need 1 or 2 drops of white to start with. Mix the black with the white using the black brush. Check with enough light. The mixing of dark colors is harder to see than the mixing of light colors, if the mixing is completed. Then continue with the routine until you reach the 75% gray that you made before. For safety, you can continue for a few steps just to be sure that the light and the dark scales overlap. Now you have all the grays to make a gray ladder. Number the gray tone rectangles so you can easily recognize them after you cut them out. Then cut the white and black into a rectangle of 3 centimeters, 1.5 inches height, and a width bigger than 5 centimeters or 2.5 inches. You need this overfill for the fixing tape. Guess which one of the grays you made is the middle gray, and cut it in the same way you did with the white and the black. Paste the white and black rectangles with such a gap that another rectangle of gray will fit exactly in between. Then make a frame for the 3-tone, white, middle gray, and black. This frame needs to have a different color than white, gray, or black, otherwise it will appear to be part of one of those 3. The amount of color will be much more than the other 2. In practice, a sheet of thick orange paper will do the work. It is really important to make the shape and quantity of the 3 parts equal in order to judge them. The only contrast you should see is the contrast in light and dark. Eliminate the influence of everything else. Now you can look at the possible options in the most ideal circumstances. Try several of the gray tones you made in the middle. Every time you see that the gray tone is closer to the white than to the black, or the other way around, it is not correct. Close your eyelids a bit. Reducing the amount of light increases the contrast. If one of the gray tones has the same distance to the white as it has to the black, it must be the ultimate middle gray tone. In the beginning, it is hard to recognize, but you will see that more practice leads to a better result. If you want to extend your investigation in the process of gray and color as a tool in the design process, here's some more projects that may be of interest. So far, you made a gray ladder of only 3, white, gray, and black. You can repeat the same selection method to make it into a ladder of 5 by finding the gray in between the white and your middle gray, etc. And then into a ladder of 9. Extending this, and with the use of a light densitometer, you may be able to borrow one from a local print shop or from a photographer if you don't already have one, to measure the light reflection of the grays that you made. Mark the amount of reflected light with the gray. If you made a gray ladder as shown here with regular holes and with light reflection numbers on the side, you can use that as a densitometer that never runs out of batteries. It is a great tool to measure the light reflection of objects in real life. Another interesting project is to make a local black hole. It is a cube with one small hole and black felt inside. From all the light that goes in, very little will come out again. It is one of the blackest colors we can make on Earth for a limited budget without actually creating a real black hole. Paint the outside of the cube black as well. It's an easy trick to fool people by asking what color it is. Almost all of them will say it is a black cube. But then showing them the hole, it is obvious that even the blackest paint is still reflecting something. Put one of your painted black rectangles on top of the hole to demonstrate. Why this exercise? This is an exercise in optical judging. By doing it over and over again, you will get better at it. Remember that this is not just true for mixing middle grays, it all adds up to the way you look at the world. All exercises in the design courses are made to improve your skills as a designer, selecting between options that are wrong and options that are worth continuing with. In the next lecture, this exercise gets very practical.